Welcome to Mac Geek Gab, episode 921 for Monday, March 28th, 2022.
Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab. I almost said it the wrong way, but I didn't. Episode 921, the show where we take your tips, your questions, your cool stuff found. We mash all of that together, and then we try to string it together into an organized and cohesive agenda that we loosely follow, because the goal is for each and every one of us, me, you, John, Pete, all of us, each, collectively, individually, to learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include Otherworld Computing, with all kinds of great stuff that they've got for your new M1 iPad Air and Mac Studio. HunterDouglas.com/MGG, where you can go get your free Style Get Smarter design guide. And a new sponsor, Kolide, at KOLIDE.co/MGG, where it's a very interesting security compliance education thing for your users. So we'll talk more about each of those here in a little bit. For now, finally back here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in unusually chilly Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Braun.
And here in Lee, New Hampshire, also a little chilly here, Pilot Pete. Once again, thrilled to be with you guys.
We're happy to have. I'm happy we're all here.
Yeah,
I'm happy we're back in our elements. Yeah, it's. I had Pete. You travel regularly for extended periods of time. I was on the road for what, 12 days? That's the longest I've been on the road in half a decade at least. So it was. Yeah. Well, it's just not. I had.
Welcome to my Tuesday.
I know. I get it. I did right. This is. Yeah. It's just an observation. But yeah, it was interesting because I was in. As you all know, or as anybody who listen to last week's episode knows, I was in Austin for South by Southwest. And then on that Sunday, I flew to LA, where I attended Podcast Movement Evolutions, and also got to see my son came down, and my wife actually flew out. So we had a little bit of family time on my son's spring break, because he's up at Reed in Portland. So it made more sense for me to head all the way west from Austin as opposed to heading east for 2 days and then all the way west from New Hampshire here, or Boston or whatever. So, but yeah, Podcast Movement Evolutions, that was South by Southwest was fantastic. It had the vibe of like South by from 5 years ago, or 8 years ago. It really was it was full of serendipitous moments throughout, and that sort of made it wonderful. I actually got to see Dolly Parton perform, which was amazing. And some other
old
too.
Friends, or
what's that?
Run into old friends and acquaintances.
I did. I actually had dinner with Dr. Mac, Bob Levitas, while I was down there, because he at least currently lives in Austin. And and then I flew to LA for Podcast Movement, which also had a good vibe to it. I think a lot of people are just happy to be able to get together. South by Southwest, these were 2 interesting conferences for me, because South by had not happened since 2019. It was the first big show here in the US that was canceled with like a week's notice in 2020. And then Podcast Movement was the last show I went to in 2020, late February of 2020. And I remember being there. It was while I was there that MWC was canceled. Mobile World Congress in Barcelona was canceled. And we were all sort of asking ourselves, like, what's going on? Should we be here? What's happening? And, all of that. So it was nice to get everybody back together. There were some good things to be learned. I actually got to meet Sadie for the first time, because she came out to Podcast Movement Evolutions, which was fantastic. She will celebrate her 1-year anniversary here tomorrow at Backbeat Media. So it was nice to be able to meet her before we hit a year. So yeah, it worked out. It was good. And Dave Slusher, who has been a friend for 16 years and also a Backbeat Media show with his Evil Genius Chronicles, and also podcaster number 5 was inducted into the Podcast Hall of Fame the other night. So, which is fantastic.
Nice.
So, yeah. So that's where I was. It was nice to be on the road. Yeah.
Dave, you said you had an agenda you follow. Do you?
I do. John, you want to take us to our first quick tip there with Brian?
I will do that. So, Brian has a good one for us. This is a follow-up to an issue I wrote to you about a while back. When I'm listening to a podcast or any other audio on my iPhone, I will sometimes open up Facebook. Annoyingly, Facebook likes to pause whatever I'm listening to, presumably so they have my complete attention. My original solution to this was to remove the microphone permissions from Facebook. This worked for a minute, but eventually the problem returned. I've now found a solution to this issue which seems to have worked permanently. It seems to be that the reason Facebook pauses other audio sources is so that the app is ready to autoplay any video that might appear in one's Facebook feed. The solution is to switch off autoplay, and you get there by going to Facebook, Settings, Video and Photos, Autoplay, and set it to Never. Fingers crossed that this permanently fixes the problem of Facebook switching off other audio I am listening to. So that's a good one. Now, my commentary on this, Dave, is that I've run into this with, so I like to play Pokemon Go.
Okay.
And the thing that I found frustrating, and I'll have to look and see if there's a setting, is that I almost always have my phone in silent mode. The little switch on the upper left of your phone. But if I plug in a headset and I'm running Pokemon, it plays the audio. And it's like, no. It's like, I told you to shut up. Why
you're right. The headset will play audio. The switch on the phone is for the speaker on the phone, not for all audio devices connected to the phone. That's right. Yeah. I think there are some things that are still muted when the switch is like I've run into this where things that I expected to make sound did not, and I don't remember the specifics, but yeah, you're right that like if you've got your AirPods in or whatever, like you will get noise even if the rocker switch is in silent mode. But
which brings me to a question, which may wind up being a geek challenge.
Sure.
And I don't know if there's a way to stop this or not, but I want to say it was Scramble with Friends, or one of the others. When my phone is on silent and I'm, Mama likes to go to sleep long before I do.
Sure.
And I'll sit there and play that, and every now and then, with the phone on silent, an ad will blast through, and I've noticed particularly there's this one PayPal ad that blasts through with loud sounds, and yeah, how are they doing that? And is there a way to stop it? Because that's not cool.
I've seen that before too. Yeah, the rocker switch. If your phone is on silent and you play a video, you will hear that sound. Like that is for
gotcha.
alerts.
So that's what they're doing. They're playing a video to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's right.
So,
yeah. Well, that would be my assumption. I mean, But yeah, things will make.
There's no sound coming from the game.
Right.
If the rocker switches up, there would be sound from the game. With that out, okay. Because a couple times she's going like, "What's that?"
Yeah.
Nothing.
No, I've had to. I wind up using my iPad in bed, and I've had to work very hard to set all of the iPad's volumes low.
Yeah.
It
so
is
not just the rocker switch, turn the volume all the way down.
Correct. Yeah. Actually, I think the iPad Mini 6 doesn't even have that rocker switch. I don't think, but even with it, I've had to set everything low. So if I am like doom scrolling on Facebook or whatever, before I go to sleep, which probably is a really bad idea anyway.
Right.
But if I am, and I happen to come across a video, I know that it won't, play. So yeah. All right. More quick tips or more on that one?
I got nothing.
All right, great. Dan has 2 of them for us. The first is, he says, I wanted to share a quick tip and a feature that I've always loved about macOS. As one colleague of mine was pointing out this feature in Visual Studio for Windows, I had to mention that this feature had been standard. He says, in the help menu of pretty much any app, there is a text box to search. Not only does this search the help files themselves, but if you type the name or partial name of any menu item, it will temporarily pull that item into the help menu. And when you hover over it, it will point out where that item is in the other menus. Yeah, this is super handy for finding a menu item that you know exists, but might be buried in several submenus or something. You just go to the help menu, you start typing, and it will show you where it is and even point a little bit to it, as Dan mentions. Yes, it is one of my favorite features of macOS. I'm with you on this, Dan. It makes life. It's one of those things where if you know it, you know it.
And if becomes part of your workflow and you forget it's even a tip.
Forget it's there, which is why we have quick tips to begin with. Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then Dan's second tip is, he says, I've heard some complaints about macOS no longer providing an option for a solid menu bar. And I have heard tips, some even on the show, to edit your wallpaper and put a solid bar at the top to solve this. That's right. Yeah. He says, that always sounded like a pain to me, and I wasn't bothered enough by the transparent menu bar to try it. But between my ultra widescreen monitor and my aging eyes, I found myself having trouble glancing at my iStat menu sensors over in the corner lately. I have an app I installed recently called 24-Hour Wallpaper, and I checked in the preferences and found that it has an option to include a solid white or solid black menu bar. The app's $10 on the Mac App Store, or also available through SetApp. But my tip is really that if you want a solid menu bar without the hassle of manually editing wallpaper, look into wallpaper management software. So thanks for that, Dan. Yeah, good stuff. I like it. Yeah. 24-hour wallpaper. I'll have to check that out. Yes. Pretty good. You guys mind the menu bar being translucent these days?
No.
Yet it hasn't bothered me, but speaking of aging eyes, I'm getting there.
It depends on what I'm using for a background.
Right.
I think on most of my Macs, I am still using the default background for Monterey, which is kind of a purpley thing. I like purple. For those of you who watch the videos, I am in a purple studio with purple ceilings. I like purple. But that being dark sort of makes my menu bar, it's fine. Like the white, shows up well on it. I generally will, if I have the option, I will set my menu bar items to be monochrome, which I really like, so that A, they pop, but also B, I don't have this weird colorful, menagerie at the top of my screen that gets a little distracting sometimes. It's just, dark and white. So, all right. Any thoughts on that before we move on?
Nothing.
All right. Back to Brian. I think it's the same Brian. Might be a different Brian, John.
Could be.
Either way. Yeah.
All right. So Brian writes in and says, I figure I'd share this useful quick tip with you. I had a folder of images that I wanted to print as a contact sheet. I was wondering how I could do this without loading the images into the Photos app or arranging them on a page in Photoshop. This helpful article explains how to delve into the print settings to do this. A contact sheet being, it's basically printing the photos in a grid on a piece of paper. And apparently professional photographers like to do this sort of thing. So
we'll link to the article, but the way that this works is you select multiple images in the Finder, you open them in preview, and then you single click on the first image, holding down the Shift key to select all, right? So you select all the images in the thumbnail view, and then File, Print, and then in the Show Details section, you can change the layout and choose the layout that fits all of your images into one page. So yeah, it's just selecting all the images and choosing a print layout. The article
that's super slick. That's a great idea.
I never thought about this before. Yeah, that's pretty good.
I actually years ago bought an app, Collage it or something like that, because the kids were going off to camp and I wanted to give them, a sheet to tape to the top of their foot locker, with family pictures from home, that sort of thing. But I wound up buying an app to do that. If I'd only known, I could have done that in preview.
Well, I'm not convinced that you although I think that might be a print feature, not a preview feature.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because you're printing multiple pages and just telling it to arrange the pages
in one.
One, right. Yeah, exactly. So I think that might be Yeah, that might have been there all along. Yeah, because I don't think it's a preview specific feature. Now that I'm kind of thinking through this and looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're right. It's one of those oft ignored features of the printing system on macOS, because other than that use case that both you and Brian mentioned, when else would you want to? I guess if you've got a multi-page PDF or something, and you want to print it to have as a reference, but
Sure.
but the text is big enough such that whatever, right? There might be some world where save paper, yeah, I don't know. I love these things because now it'll sit in my head, right? And the next time I need to do something like that, maybe I'll remember.
Maybe you'll remember.
Exactly. Not necessarily, but back in show 920, which was just the last episode, I talked about watching and listening to that movie 32 Sounds using my AirPods, and wondered if I would have been able to watch with my wife with her on her AirPods. And it turns out, yes, you can connect 2 sets of AirPods, but only 2 to your Apple TV. And it's using the share audio feature, which is what you would use like on your iPad if you were on an airplane watching a movie and you wanted to share audio with a fellow Apple AirPods user. Or I guess maybe it's any Bluetooth user, but certainly it works with AirPods. But yeah, you use the share audio feature, which is accessible on Apple TV as well. I'm pulling up the link to do it, but I think it's in Control Center. Yeah, you press and hold this the button that looks like a TV on a stand on the Siri remote, and when you hold that, Control Center opens up, and then you select the little audio share icon. And then share audio, and you can add the second pair of headphones there. So the answer is yes, which is great. I'm glad to hear that. I wish it was. I wish it was possible to do more, but syncing up the audio of 2 Bluetooth devices is non-trivial, because you've got different amounts of delay and all of that stuff. So. That's pretty interesting to me. I know Airfoil from Rogue Amoeba can do that on your Mac, and I've done it where I remember we stayed in this Airbnb, and the TV was connected to like a 5.1 sound system or something, and the 5.1 sound system had its own AirPlay. It was an AirPlay destination, whatever the Denon receiver that they were using to do it, and then I had 2 Bluetooth speakers with me, and I wondered, I'm like, can I play sound? Like, can I put one Bluetooth speaker upstairs, one out at the hot tub, and then AirPlay for the main floor of the house? And can I make the music just play everywhere? And sure enough, I could. It was actually pretty. I was like, oh, look at that, yeah. So it's but it's tricky. Those folks at Rogue Amoeba know what they're doing with that stuff. But this is obviously with Apple TV. You aren't running core audio apps on Apple TV, so you need to use the built-in settings. So you're using share audio. But thank you, Raymond. That's good. Any more on that before we move on to Ed? Anybody?
Mr. Ed.
Mr. Ed. Of course. Speaking of Apple TV. Ed says, I was watching my Apple TV the other day, and I was pressing the TV button on my 4th gen Siri remote, and I accidentally double pressed it quickly. That caused the Apple TV to bring all the apps in a cover flow-like style, like it is on your iPhone when you swipe up halfway. You can then scroll through all the different apps and select one to launch it. I thought this was interesting, and I'd never noticed it before on the Apple TV. Yeah, in fact, that's how you can also force quit an app, just like on your iPhone. Get to the app that you want to force quit and swipe it up. And I've definitely had that help when, I'm running an Apple TV app that like doesn't want to sync with whatever it's supposed to sync with. It's just like, all right, bail out, let's launch anew. And it definitely has worked. So, and I had one Apple TV app. I wish I could remember the scenario, but I had something that was actually conflicting with something else, which was weird because everything's so sandboxed on, iOS and tvOS. But I had something where I had to quit one. It was like one video player app to make another one work. And I run weird things like, I run Plex and Channel. I mean, it's not weird, but I run, closer to the edge stuff than might be just typical with Netflix and Hulu and things like that. So I don't know what it was, but it was an interesting little let me quit. It was like, oh, now it works. Weird. So anyway,
Interesting.
yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned I had flown a bit here, which was nice to get around the country and see people. I noticed on my phone, every time I went to get on a plane, I had to unlock my phone before my boarding pass would show. And I knew that this was not how it used to be for me. So after watching my wife just pull up her boarding pass, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, there's a setting somewhere. Sure enough, settings, Face ID and passcode allow access when unlocked. The wallet slider for me had been turned off. I probably turned it off, just to be fair. Like, I don't think there was some gremlin that did this. I'm sure I thought, I don't want my wallet available while I'm locked. So I probably turned it off. But it turns out I do want my wallet available when unlocked, because all those passes are what actually are those are the things being made available. So yeah. And then I could just tap the boarding pass and up it comes.
Right.
So yeah.
And then a dovetail to that may be that I think I don't know if I mentioned it on the show or in the pre-show at one point not too long ago, where my wallet was not syncing to my watch. Do you recall that?
I do.
Yeah.
How did you fix that?
Solved it. And even with the updates and all that, Apple ostensibly knew about it. But instead, what I did is I unpaired the watch, I reset it to factory settings, and I brought it back in, and it came up. So there was some stray bit in there somewhere refusing to allow my wallet to sync to my watch.
Yeah.
And so that fixed it. Not the easiest fix. It's kind of the last thing you want to do, but I set it up as new and then brought all my apps in again. And, but that worked out really well. And then
I'm glad. Okay. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know we were trying to figure out what that was. And
they knew
we
it
will
was
never
a
know.
problem, but they didn't know why. And it only
Right.
happened on some, and they couldn't duplicate it, yada, yada, yada. But
Interesting.
And then the other thing along that line with the wallet and the watch, not many people know this. You can leave your phone in the car inadvertently and use Apple Pay on your watch. You don't have to have your phone with you, even if it's not a cellular watch.
That's right. Yeah, Apple Pay does not rely on you having a data connection. It relies on the merchant having a data connection. That's right.
So it keeps the pay token with you.
Yeah. Your token is your token. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That's a really good point, because go ahead, John.
No, I didn't know that. I thought that your phone needed a data connection of whatever sort in order for Apple Pay to work. You're saying that's not the case?
That is not the case. No, It is just just like your credit card doesn't for NFC, right? Like
Right. Okay.
Same similar kind of thing. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good way to think about it. It's the chip in the card. Yeah.
It's just, I mean, ish. It's not exactly that, but it's close enough.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I got to say that I love now in 15.4, are we at now? I can finally use Apple Pay and wear a mask.
Right.
So you got to retrain it. And it was actually interesting because, so I retrained it, and the first profile, it's like, okay, I got it. And then it's like, oh, by the way, take off your glasses. I'm like, how do you know I'm wearing glasses?
It knows. Yeah.
Right. I do it. No.
Yeah.
I got 15.3.1. So if we're at 15.4, I'm behind.
Oh, yeah. You have an Apple Watch, so it's not as big of a deal for you because your phone will unlock if you're wearing your watch. But yeah, you get real Face ID, full Face ID with a mask on with 15.4. So not only does that mean unlock, which your watch will do, but unlike your watch unlocking it, 15.4's Face ID with a mask will let you unlock things like 1Password or, as John just pointed out, Apple Pay. So yeah.
Good point. Yeah, I've noticed I still have to pull my mask down when I'm in the airport and trying to unlock my phone. 1Password, not unlock the phone.
For
unlock
1Password.
Unlock the apps. Yeah.
I just got in the habit of using my watch for Apple Pay, which doesn't require any, any in the moment unlocking. It requires it to already be unlocked, but it usually isn't.
I got to say though, I'm amazed at the number of people who are amazed that you can pay with your watch. Still. I mean, how many years into this thing?
Every time I do it, people are like, yeah, I know. Yeah,
I can count the number of times on one hand that I've actually seen somebody use either an iPhone or a watch.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked one time that I saw somebody using the watch, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Have you ordered a watch yet, John? I know there was some post-show discussion about that a few weeks ago.
It's in the queue.
All right.
I can't tell how many years I didn't wear a watch because I always had my phone in my pocket.
Yeah.
And it was the whole, the wearables, and are they going to do a watch? And remember all that discussion years ago?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Like you, Dave, I mean, this is what I got. It's a Timex, tried and true. I just like a mechanical watch or quartz watch.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I was just going to say that's not mechanical, that's quartz. But yes, right. Yeah, no, I like wearing different watches, but there is a convenience factor with the Apple Watch. And then there's the health stuff, especially for folks who have, conditions.
It
or
has
folks
saved
that
lives.
Don't
literally.
know they have conditions. I'm routinely reminded of our friend Chuck Latornis, who years ago wrote an article for Macworld about this, so I feel okay talking about his health issues. But he was the picture of perfect health, felt fine, and his watch alerted him that he was having an incident, and he went to the hospital because he believed what his watch was telling him. And sure enough, we can't say whether or not it saved his life because we don't have a control group of another Chuck Latornis in a parallel universe without an Apple Watch. But
sure we do, Dave. You just don't know about it.
Well, that's it.
Of course
it's
about
it. Of course it's
parallel.
There. That's fair, Pete. Yes, of course it's there. That's right.
Wait a minute. If it was truly parallel, he'd have a watch there too. But I'm sorry.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. What is this? It's a adjacent universe.
Yeah,
maybe that's the way we need to think about it.
Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go down that rabbit hole.
No, it's good. Rabbit holes in adjacent universes. I think that's the
show title.
Yep. But yeah, it saves lives. It's great. Yeah. Yeah, and it can be fun too and handy. Can also be.
I'm surprised how much I love having mine. I had do
you wear your watch? You are. Correct me if I misremember this, Pete, but I believe you are a left-handed person that outwardly identifies as left-handed. So you wear your watch.
I do. I wear it on my right hand with the crown down.
Yes, well, crown down. I mean, so that's because you're a civilized human, Pete.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I wear crown down as well. Yeah. I just don't wear the watch while I'm doing the show because I bang things. It's bad. Yeah. So,
but yeah, that's the cool thing about it is that you can put the crown on the side that you can touch it with your other hand, unlike other watches.
Right. Yeah, I use the crown with my thumb. I wear it on my left wrist. Although I've been told I'm left-handed, I identify outwardly as a right-handed human. So, but it's just one of those things.
I'm ambi in almost everything I do except writing.
Yeah,
and golf. I golf right-handed.
Interesting.
I don't golf that much, but when I golf right-handed. When I played baseball, I would switch it. I could hit a little better left-handed than right-handed.
Sure. Yeah. You use chopsticks with both hands?
No, left-handed.
I taught myself to use both hands with chopsticks just to mess with my brain a couple of years ago. But it's super handy at tables, like to be ambidextrous with whatever your eating implement is. Yeah. Because if, especially if I'm sitting next to a left-handed person, I don't want to be banging elbows all meal or whatever. So, yeah.
It's funny how the brain works. So I will mention, I have a friend who lost his right arm in a motorcycle accident, forced to become left-handed.
Yeah.
That dude can do stuff with his left hand. I can't do it with both hands. It is amazing how he has adapted and overcome. And he's one of the few pilots in the country with an unrestricted medical.
Wow.
Yeah. He was able to demonstrate flying without a prosthetic device.
Yep.
Yeah. So
amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah, it really is.
Are you, I'm curious about this, so I'm just going to go down the path here. Sure. Do you know if you're right eye dominant or left eye dominant?
Yeah, I think I'm right eye dominant.
Interesting.
That's it. That's how I shoot. When I've done the hold your thumb out, that sort of thing.
Okay. Yeah.
But my vision is actually weaker in my right eye.
That doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, but it is the dominant eye.
It was maybe 10 years ago. We were at that family camp we used to go to on Labor Day weekend, and I was asking the guy. We were at archery yet again. I'm like, how do you aim this thing? I'm like, I got to cock my head over, and he looks at me. He's like, wait a minute, are you right eye dominant or left eye dominant? I'm like, I don't know. And so we did the test. He's like, oh, you're left eye dominant. He's like, do you feel comfortable shooting with a lefty bow? I'm like, yeah, let's try that. 10 bullseyes. right away. It's like, oh, now I understand how to aim. I see. And yeah. When I've gone to like, rifle ranges or whatever, shooting a gun, I very much am, left eye dominant with that too. So yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
It is a thing. Yeah. What do you
the
do?
quick test is hold out. No, you hold your thumb out and you put it over something.
Right.
And then you close your right eye and your left eye and you go, I mean, you kind of are going to see two thumbs. So you hold it out at arm's length. I'm kind of demonstrating that. And then you you put it over a dot across the room, a wall switch, something like that. And then you close one eye and the other. When you
without
close
moving your thumb.
Yeah, without moving your thumb. When you close the eye that's weak, when your dominant eye is open, it will cover that dot.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And when you close your dominant eye, your thumb will have appeared to move.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. The whole parallax thing.
That makes sense.
So,
Yeah. Just at the eye doctor.
And at the risk. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
No, it was kind of cool. So, once a year I get a vision field test, and they have this big monstrosity of a machine that will basically flash lights, and you got to press the button. And it's funny because at first, it's like, it's basically a computer or a robot. And I was like, oh, well, I can figure out how to trick this thing, because it makes a noise between lighting up the lights. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just press the button. Maybe I should just press the button every time. No. They know. And fortunately, my vision is fine.
That's good. Yeah, hearing tests are going to be the same way. Don't guess. Yeah.
And that whole thumb thing, another quick rabbit hole, but that whole thumb
We're
thing.
still in the rabbit hole. Pete.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, we are. Is how people say, how can they not find that Asiana 371 or not? What was the 777 that disappeared? It wasn't Asiana. It was somebody else's.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming out of Kuala Lumpur. And I often say, hey, look, you got a jumbo jet flying over, hold your arm out at arm's length, close one eye and put your thumb up, and you can cover up that airplane. Now, make that airplane still at the bottom of 15, 20,000 feet down of an ocean, and now search for that airplane in 30,000 square miles or 500,000 square miles. You ain't finding it.
It's not going to happen. You might get lucky, but that's about it. Right.
Yeah. So, but that's my favorite thumb over an object.
What's my favorite thing? Elliot's next quick tip.
There you go.
Which is our final quick tip for today, and hopefully we'll make it.
No more rabbit hole.
Elliot says, I was listening to the last episode 920 tonight and appreciated the quick tip about force quitting the focused app with Command Option Shift Escape. But that's an awkward key combination. So I used Better Touch Tool to remap that key combination. I happen to use the Hyper key, which is caps lock. And that sends Command Option Control Shift all together on my system. So I have set the force quit shortcut to be Hyper Q, easy to remember. If you are not familiar with the HyperKey system, it used to be a chore to set it up, and I used to have to use Carabiner and then Carabiner Elements, but a couple years ago, Better Touch Tool implemented an option for it. So I have a host of new keyboard shortcuts with Command Option Control Shift plus a key press, easily set off by using the caps lock and key press combination. So this is interesting. I had seen reference to HyperKey in the past in a couple things. I think Keyboard Maestro might even do it, although I haven't looked. So don't necessarily quote me on that, although you can take this video and chop it up and share it, and that's effectively quoting me. But I never understood how it worked until reading Elliot's note here. So it's not whether you have to hold down caps lock and then hit a key. So it's not like if caps lock is down and he hits Q, it's just going to force quit the app, right? Or if caps lock is activated, I want to say. That's better than down. I say down because on the typewriter, it would actually lock down or come up. But in today's world, it is a key like any other. So it's either activated or not activated. That's not relevant to this part of the conversation. It's when it is down with your finger still on it in an active sense. So yeah, I need to think about, I like this idea of using caps lock as this hyper key. Interesting. See the 5 things. Yeah. We have learned many of them already. We have lots more to learn. We have lots of your questions. Hopefully we'll get through many of them. We might even get to some cool stuff found, but it's possible that won't happen until 922. The next thing that I'd like to learn about, though, is our sponsors, if that works for you, Mr. Braun.
Okay.
All right. First up today is a new sponsor, Kolide at KOLIDE.com/MGG. They know that compliance and security are super important to you, but you don't want to get there by locking down your users' devices to the point where they become unusable. So instead of frustrating your employees, Kolide takes a different approach. Kolide educates them about security and device management while directing them to fix specific important problems. And it does this with Slack, right? So if it notices that your user doesn't have a password manager installed, they get a Slack message that educates them as to why they want to do this. If they are using plain text two-factor backup codes, right, it'll teach end users to store them securely. If you've got employees who have installed these evil browser extensions that may sell their browser history, it's going to educate them about these things. And it uses Slack to do it. So it's totally ingrained in your culture, ingrained in your workflows that you already have. Compliance without complaints, because they know that end users are IT admins' most significant untapped resource and key to solving the most challenging to fix security issues. So you've got to go check it out. Visit kolide.com/MGG to sign up today. That's KOLIDE.com/MGG. Enter your email when prompted so that you receive your free Kolide gift bundle after trial activation. Our thanks to Kolide for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Otherworld Computing with some fantastic storage and connectivity solutions for the new iPad Air with M1 and for the Mac Studio. You've got one of those Mac Studios, you're going to want blazing fast external storage to work with it. The OWC Envoy Pro SX, super fast, extreme rugged, portable SSD with speeds up to 2,847 megabytes per second, sizes up to 2 terabytes. The OWC Atlas S Pro is best in class for flash storage, capacities from 32 gigs up to 256 gigs. And that doesn't include all their Thunder Bays and everything else. You've got that new iPad Air with M1. You're going to want the OWC Envoy Pro Electron, which is a USB Type-C Gen 2 SSD, water resistant, dust resistant, IP67, and capacities up to 2 terabytes. You're also going to want that OWC USB-C travel dock, 5 ports, up to 100 watts of pass-through charging, just one cable. It can pull in, all your USB stuff. It's what you're going to want. If you want more than that, well, then the Thunderbolt hub or the Thunderbolt 4 USB-C cables with all that stuff. Go check it out, macsales.com. That's where you're going to go to get it. That's where John and I go first anytime we need to expand or add on to our Macs or iOS devices. And our thanks to Otherworld Computing at macsales.com for sponsoring this episode. Who doesn't love to live well, to be perfectly at ease in comfort and style? Hunter Douglas, our next sponsor here, can help you to do just that with their innovative window shade designs, gorgeous fabrics, and control systems so advanced they can be scheduled to automatically adjust to their optimal position throughout the day. Visit hunterdouglas.com/MGG to see the way the shades diffuse harsh sunlight to cast a beautiful glow across your rooms. You can see how that you can enjoy the view outside while protecting your privacy inside. You can see how the shades provide insulation, keeping you warmer in the winter, cooler in the summer, and lowering utility bills. And then you tap into Hunter Douglas's PowerView technology on your phone. Your shades can be set automatically to reposition for the perfect balance of light, privacy, and insulation morning, noon, and night. Again, hunterdouglas.com/MGG. That's where I've been going here. I am really eager to check these things out. And you can too. You can live beautifully with Hunter Douglas. So visit hunterdouglas.com/MGG today for your free Style Gets Smarter design guide with fresh takes, creative ideas, and smart solutions for dressing your windows. That's hunterdouglas.com/MGG for your free design guide. And our thanks to Hunter Douglas for sponsoring this episode. All right. How about you take us to Roy's question, John?
I will take us to Roy. Roy asks, is there an easy way or someone I can talk to, well, you can talk to us, that will help me block websites on the Google Chrome browser for my MacBook Pro? I spent a lot of time researching it, but the directions are complicated, or I can't find the area or link that the article wants you to go to. Very frustrating. And I'm like, okay. And I did the same thing. I searched for ways to do this, and the first article I found, the instructions were garbage. So I'm not going to point out who it was. But then I did I whipped out my Google Foo, Dave, and I did find something. User.blocksite.co is a Chrome extension that, well, basically does that. So, I punched in our website, macgeekgab.com, into it, and when I tried to go to it, it's like, nope, not going to happen. So, it looks like you have to throw down some money to get the service past the free trial, but the reviews that they have on their site seem to be positive. I don't know why you'd put negative reviews up. So anyways, that's what I have to offer, but I think you gentlemen have some other thoughts about how to accomplish this.
Yeah, I had a question that came up when looking at that question, when I'm wondering if what I had done in the past was more broader than just Chrome, more broad than just Chrome, which is OpenDNS. You set up your home to use OpenDNS to filter all manner of websites. So you can even blacklist certain websites as opposed to just general. Like, for instance, I think, John, you mentioned at one point a couple shows ago about not being able to go to the lottery website because it was gambling, but you could block out specific gambling type websites and allow lottery in by whitelisting lottery.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that might be an avenue worth pursuit.
That is a good way to go. The only issue that I would mention with that is browsers like Firefox, which use their own secure DNS. So if you're using Firefox in its default mode, I believe it completely bypasses your Mac's DNS, does its own DNS in the browser, and will completely bypass anything that your router is doing because it uses this secure DNS tunnel. And I think you can set up Chrome to do the same thing. You can't with Safari. And I was going to say, don't get me started on Safari and DNS, but it's already happened. I don't know who, I do know who at Apple works on the Safari team. At least one of them is a recovering Mac Geek Gab listener. But he's the one that came up with the put your two-factor text message in your keyboard automatically kind of thing. But Safari will hold on to its DNS resolution forever. And that is super frustrating when you're trying to do web development and say want to change from, pointing to the origin server versus the proxy server, or you make some other change. And it's like, yeah, I'm just going to hang on to this like my life depends on it. But anyway, OpenDNS would work for most things. Test it. That would be my advice for any of these solutions, is just test them, because some browsers will bypass that stuff. So finding a plugin that can block it would be the way to go, I think.
Interesting, yeah. Because I thought once you sent your DNS that's where it went on that given machine. But I guess
it should. But yeah, I know Firefox for sure. Well, you can turn it off, but I believe it is on by default to use secure DNS. It tunnels over HTTPS, so.
So all of you people who have, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, it's fine.
So all of you people who have set up OpenDNS and think your kids aren't going places they shouldn't be going, as long as they're not using Firefox, they probably aren't.
Yeah, and then the other thing your kids could do, as long as they have admin access to their device, which on their iPhone, it depends on how you set up parental controls, but they could go in and change the DNS to be, 1.1.1 or 9.9.9.9, and then now they're not using your router's DNS, or they could switch over to cellular. We had somebody a number of years ago that wrote in and they said, look, my daughter's been obsessed with watching Gossip Girl, and she she wasn't doing her homework and all that stuff. It's like, how do I fix it? He says, I'm at my wit's end. He said, I instituted, OpenDNS so that she couldn't go to whatever it was, Netflix or whatever service was streaming Gossip Girl at the time. He said, but then she just turned on tethering on her phone and used up all her data. Right. And so what I did was I armed him with the most important information, which I won't share here, although my guess is that we are well outside of the spoilers window. But my daughter had watched Gossip Girl, and because of the conversations in the house, I knew who Gossip Girl was, the big reveal at the end. And so I told him who Gossip Girl was. And I'm like, this is the information that will solve the problem. So I don't know if he chose to use it that way or not, but, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. While we're talking about parental controls, oh yeah, is there, because we had a question about parental controls.
Well, is OpenDNS free, or you got to throw them some money?
OpenDNS is free for home internet security filtering, whatever the part we're talking about here, absolutely free. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they even have a little client. So those of us with varying, what's it called? Jeez, don't get old, bad for your memory. Your
Dynamic
DNS
IP
changes.
addresses. Yes.
So
yeah.
When you get a new IP address from AT&T or Comcast or Roadrunner, it follows you.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah, you can link it all together. While we are on the subject of parental controls, listener Abel had a question, and I'm not sure we have an answer. John, do you want to take this first? Do you want me to take it? How shall we do this? I got it. He says, my question is, with an iPhone, can you monitor iMessages for youth accounts? We are discussing getting my 12-year-old an iPhone next year since she will be in middle school. However, unfortunately, she is still growing and not mature at the level she should be. So I would like to be able to monitor her activity. Any advice would be appreciated. So this is interesting because this is part, iMessages are end-to-end encrypted. They are part of Apple's, whole security pipeline, if you will, for lack of a better term. One way to do it would be to have another device, and it could just be another account on your Mac that you log into her iCloud/iMessage account, and then you will see all of the iMessages sent to and from that account when you log in on your Mac, just like you do with yours, right? I mean, it's the same kind of thing. So that would be one way to do it, but it does require dedicating a Mac or a user account or another device. You could do it on a spare iPhone or a spare iPad, but it requires a little bit of sort of, doing a little end around on things to get there. And theoretically, your daughter could switch that off on her phone if she really wanted to, So, but that is one way to do it. The other way would be to use one of the myriad of spy software options. And there are tons of them. I don't want to mention any of them on the show because I've tried zero, and many of them come from questionable vendors. I know that there are some from reputable vendors, so this is where I think it's a little bit of a geek challenge. Please let us know, feedback@macgeekgab.com, if you use any of these kinds of things, if you've had good luck with them or bad luck. Let us know because it would be good to share. But yeah, there is software you can install to monitor these sorts of things on iPhone. But like I said, it's a geek challenge. So feedback@macgeekgab.com.
Did you say feedback@macgeekgab.com, Dave?
I think he did say feedback@macgeekgab.com.
I sure did.
But Dave, I actually found something at famikeep.com. That's F as in Frank, AMIKEEP.
Okay.
.com, and go to the show notes for the rest of the link because it's a long one and you'll not remember it if I didn't read it out.
That's what the show notes are for.
Right,
MacGeekGab.com.
exactly.
Yeah.
But I found out you could do this through the iPhone operating system quite inadvertently. A neighbor of ours had their child on there, and he goes, all her text messages are coming to my phone too. And he went back and checked. Oh, good. He inadvertently set it up correctly because at famikeep.com, it tells you how to set this up so that your text messages back and forth aren't showing up on her phone,
right?
Your daughter's phone or your son's phone, whatever the case may be. But theirs are automatically showing up on yours, which I think is excellent. And I know everybody comes here for parental advice, but so that's what I did with my kids.
Did that work with iMessages though? Because I thought text message forwarding was just text messages.
It is because if you follow the instructions on that website to use it with iCloud, you go in and you have to log in the right order, her account and then your account. if you do it backwards, then your daughter is going to get all your messages back and
Right.
forth too. But no,
Right.
it comes right up. You see all the message traffic going back and forth because it's logged into that same account. So it's got the key to get it. And then, for what it's worth with my kids, it was, I'm paying for the phone. Guess what I get to do? I get to have total control over it. I mean, that was just right up front. And I think it was incentive for my kids to keep it clean and to keep it honest.
Yeah.
When they turn 18, I'm still paying for the phone, but you're an adult now. And I hope I've taught you enough responsibility. And then I go in on your birthday. Here it is. We're out of here.
I'm out. That's right. Yeah. With our kids, we didn't do that, but the policy was any of your devices, we need to always know your passcode, which was helpful both from a parenting standpoint, but also just an IT standpoint, because kids tend to forget these things, especially once like Touch ID came into the world and all that stuff. And the other was at any point in time, if we ask you for your phone, you got to give it to us immediately, you know.
And that was, that's the way to go. And if kids are reluctant to do that, then, okay, go buy your own phone service.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. No, right. Yeah. We were pretty, we're very open with our kids. And there is no one right way to parent. There are many right ways and many wrong ways, I suppose. But, it worked out well for us. We had a lot of really, probably what would seem to other families very awkward dinner table conversations, but we were always really open with the kids. And that plus the, your device is open to us at any time. And once they were, I think the last time we checked it, they probably weren't even 17. But I mean, you get to a point where you're like, okay, it's a trust equation, and here we are, and
they've built up the trust. And
exactly. Well, and it's a two-way. Trust is a two-way street.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so early on, they're so eager to get the device that they're going to agree to that. Oh yeah, great. You can look at my phone anytime. I don't want to do anything bad with it.
Yeah, you have a lot of leverage right up until the moment you hand them the device. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, negotiate wisely. Yeah. No, it makes sense.
The two things I'll throw in the ring. So number one, of course, there's parental controls with family sharing.
And does that do this? I didn't think that shared messages.
No, I don't. No, I don't think it shares messages. From what I recall, I don't use it.
Sure.
But I think it will let you restrict web access, and I think also set timetables when it can be used, so it could be part of a solution.
Yeah, for sure.
The other thing I found is that check with your carrier. Verizon offers something called Verizon Smart Family, which I think you can actually track where that phone is. And
you can do that with Find My now, right? I mean, that works really well. That the whole, if you're part of a family on your phone, Find My is baked in, so. Which is great. Like, that's super, super handy.
Yeah, so give your kid an AirTag so you can find
you don't have to. With an iPhone, like, that's it.
Right.
Yeah, with an iPhone, you don't need to. It's just there. But so what else does Smart Family... Okay, so Smart Family from Verizon does allow... you can view their online activity, manage calls and texts, filter content, and pause the internet.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know AT&T had a similar thing when I had that. I could turn the kids' data off at dinner time.
Yeah.
When that became a problem, just turn it off. No, we're not doing that now.
Yeah.
And when the homework wasn't getting done, you could turn off internet access on the phones. And I wish, although it's base stuff, it'd be nice if Mint Mobile would allow those features somehow.
Yeah. I mean, I like that at least they let me, I guess I like that they let me collect all the billing into my account. So if they didn't, wait.
Darn them. That's not a good thing.
Then my kids would have to pay for their own data. Yeah. Wait a minute. I need to make some changes in my life, Pete. I'm an empty nester now. Why does the phone bill still come to me? Right. Oh, it's because I still want to be able to reach my kids. That's what it is. Yeah. If they paid for it, I would have less leverage. There you go. All right. But if you do let us know of anything you've tried, feedback at macgeekgab.com. I appreciate this conversation. This was great. I learned a ton. This is good. Pete, you found something interesting about the new Mac Studio.
I did, and I sent it to you, and then I completely forgot I had found it, Dave. But it was an iFixit email that I got, and it talked about the modular storage and whether or not it was upgradable or not. And they tried several attempts to do it, and they kept getting DFU restore errors, and they were not able to upgrade the Mac Studio with a third-party drive. But they were able to get drives of the same size to do a storage swap.
Right.
So that was, and so there's a link there in the show notes as well. They can get.
Yeah,
I have written down. They can't get two. Can't get two base models to boot in a single machine, but they weren't able to do upgrades. But they were able to get the drives to swap storage, which was kind of surprising. You would have expected they'd be able to stick another drive in there and make it work.
Well,
I should say, not.
Yeah,
Josh you understand why they're doing that, you think?
Josh Centers over at Tidbits put together a great article that links to an Ars Technica piece where they dug in. Andrew Cunningham over at Ars dug in and sort of figured out the why behind this. And as Josh points out, I'm just going to read what Josh wrote because there's no reason to paraphrase. He says, every SSD has two components, the controller, which is the interface to the machine, and then the storage, the storage part itself. And Apple builds the SSD controller into either the M1 chip or the T2 security chip now. And the SSDs inside the Mac Studio are just the raw storage without a controller. And that's why iFixit was able to get a drive swap to work, because it's an Apple drive being paired with an Apple controller. And so it worked. The problem was initially what iFixit was trying to do was just put in a generic SSD, and that did not work because it was not that the Apple controller
were battling for.
Yeah, the Apple control. Yeah, probably that. Actually, you're right. Probably it was that there were two controllers in the line there, or at the very least, Apple's controller was like, I don't trust this. I'm not going to use it. That kind of thing. So the speculation that Josh goes on to say is that, vendors like an OWC might eventually offer Mac Studio compatible SSDs that are built specifically for the Mac Studio. But our advice would be make sure you buy it with what you need. But bear in mind that the thing's got a hefty amount of Thunderbolt 4 ports on it. Buy it with enough to boot it and run your apps and put your documents and all your big files on an external drive. Like, it's not a portable machine. So having a drive tethered to it will become. I have a drive tethered to this machine, the venerable, I guess I'll call it venerable 2019 iMac in the studio, and I forget that I have a drive tied to it. Why? Because I don't move it around. When I rejiggered the office last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I sure remembered I had the drive then. But you forget because it's all just right there. So.
Easy to encrypt those drives, Dave? Drives?
Yeah, you can. Yes, you can file vault the external drives, which if that's important to you, then you would want to do that. The internal drives.
In the unlikely event someone burglarized and walked off with a drive, all your tax documents on there or something.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. For me, it's Mac Geek Gab and audio files, my pictures, and and like any of the Fling or Bitterpill studio stuff that we do with the band. So I'm not that worried about it. But yes, you can encrypt them for sure. The internal drives are anything connected to an M1 chip or a T2 chip is automatically encrypted. So yeah. Yes, good stuff. Thanks for bringing that up, Pete. I like it. Speaking of things that came up recently, listener Patrick alerted us to, or reminded us, whatever it is, if you've heard about it already or not, this article that happened, that came on the Wall Street Journal, and then John Gruber over at Daring Fireball wrote about it too, how Nicole Wen at Wall Street Journal did some tests streaming video on her iPhone 13 Pro, I think, using the various settings of 5G or not 5G, and found that she got several more battery life hours out of the device turning 5G off entirely. So there are 3 settings. There's 5G on all the time. There's 5G auto, which Apple says in the little description will, only use 5G when it's not going to negatively impact battery life. And then there's LTE only. And LTE only was far better with battery than 5G. My kids, I will point out, have known this for a long time. They always turn off 5G. And prior to that, turned off LTE for the same reason. They were fine with whatever, 4G or whatever that was labeled on the phone because battery life was more important to them than speed. So this is a common practice amongst people of that generation, it seems, or at least the people.
My kids live in the battery saving or energy saving mode. The
Absolutely.
Yellow battery icon.
Yeah, that too, right? That helps as well. And I just turned. I have an automation shortcut that turns power saving mode on, and it
hits 80%.
Yeah, when it hits 80% on a charge, your phone will turn power saving mode or low power mode off. And thankfully, turning low power mode off can be an automation trigger. So when low power mode is turned off, I have a trigger that turns it back on. And I turn that on when I am traveling. When I'm around the house here, I don't bother with it. But it was on for 2 weeks straight, almost. So yeah. Yes. Good stuff. Have you guys, John, have you done any experiments with do you leave 5G on or 5G auto on your phone, or are you?
I don't know what's going on in my neighborhood, but so I don't have the ultra wideband. The plan that I have with Verizon is just the slower 5G version.
Regular 5G. Yeah, sure.
And for like a couple of weeks now, the 5G icon doesn't come on anymore. And I don't know what's up. It used to. There would be certain spots that I went to, and yeah, I have it set to, auto. But I even tried to force it, and no, I'm not getting 5G anymore. The thing is, I'm fine. I mean, for what I do, LTE is good enough.
Sure. For now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that I do, I'm not streaming, huge amounts of data. I mean, the most intense thing that I do is Pokemon Go, and I don't think that really uses a lot of data.
Right.
At least according to my data widget, which it's nice that Verizon offers that, so I can look and see, is this chewing up data, and it's not. So, not a biggie right now, but maybe at some point in the future, if I do some, heavy lifting,
yeah,
want to have 5G.
I mean, our data usage. I mean, we used to say that whatever 1x RTT was fast enough, right? That would be
300 baud. Dave, you froze. Wow, John, it's you and me, brother. Can you hear me?
Yeah, he's stuck.
Yeah, Dave is frozen.
There?
Interesting. I wonder if he knows
Dave.
it. It's cold here, but it didn't that cold to freeze him up instantly. So anyway, well, in case the show is still going on, I was going to say, I just looked on my phone, John, and I noted that when I turn Wi-Fi on, my little 5G or LTE icon goes away. Mm-hmm. But I still obviously got it. Is if you turn Wi-Fi off, do you see what you're on?
No.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Because that hit it.
All right.
I think we probably ought to pause because Dave is not going to want half the show without him. Well, let's ask this. Can you hear us in the chat room? Anyone? Bueller? Yeah. Well. Because I'm still seeing the live counting. Now Dave is a spinning widget.
Oh, okay.
And I'm seeing the counting going up.
Something.
Dave says he can hear both of us. I just got a message. There we go. Or well, he could. Well, we stopped talking briefly, Dave. So, can you still hear us? That is interesting. Kind of okay. Dave has paused the show, and they can still hear us in the chat room.
Oh, now it's just me and you.
Yeah.
Let's see if he can
Wonder if he comes
reinsert.
back.
Ah, there he is. Or at least I see a window with his name on it.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
That was weird. I just had to
Welcome back.
reconnect.
Yeah.
But what happened? Did we lose
We got
John?
you here.
Okay. I
Yeah.
lost John again, which is weird.
Oh. I see John and hear him.
Yeah. No, it just like went dark and then came back.
Okay.
Hang tight though.
The YouTube channel says they can hear us.
Yeah. I have not resumed the recording yet because I want to check to see what happened here. I am curious about a few things.
Speaking of kernel panics.
Yes, that's right. I think I'm still connected here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. All right. I will bring us back in and we'll go from there. So. All right, we're back. I had an interesting connection issue. I wish I had more logs from my router. What's interesting is I never lost connection to www.apple.com, like I could ping Apple, but I did lose connection to StreamYard, which is the platform that we use to do this. And what I wish I knew if it was like my IP address changed, right? Which happens sometimes with my consolidated connection, or is it something else that caused it? But we're back, so it's all good. Yes, fascinating. Where were we on things? We were talking about something with 5G, and then I realized you guys couldn't hear me. So,
Yeah. Well, John had said he couldn't see what he was on. His icon went away, and I had mentioned that when I go to when I turn my Wi-Fi off, I can see what kind of connection I have. If I turn Wi-Fi on, that icon blocks whether I'm LTE or 5G or what have you. And you were talking about it, and you froze instantly.
Well, there we are.
Yeah.
If you're right. You need to turn Wi-Fi off to see that. But that's interesting that maybe they turned off your 5G tower near you, John. I don't know. If you walk outside of your house, like if you walk downtown, is it still not 5G?
Yes.
Interesting. Well, yeah.
No 5G for you.
No 5G, unless there's something that happened to your 5G radio. I mean, it would be interesting to A/B test that. Ask your neighbors if they're seeing 5G. Your Verizon-based neighbors. That would be the other thing. I don't know. Or maybe an iPhone, because you had often said that you weren't at home. You weren't getting super fast 5G speeds, and so I wonder if Apple recalibrated the tolerance for when it shifts to 5G or not, and realized, wait, there's no reason to shift these phones to 5G if they're not going to see speed. So let's leave them on LTE and preserve battery life.
Mm-hmm.
But then in those instances, I would think by putting it on, 5G forced or whatever that option's called, then that would put you there. So yeah, I don't know the answer.
Well, so I could switch it to 5G on, which means that whenever 5G is around and I'm not on Wi-Fi, it should select it if it's available, but it's not. So.
Right. Interesting. All right. We've got time for a couple more things. I'd be curious to hear if your stuff comes back. Adam brings us the next question, which I'm sure I have here. I do have here. This is a fascinating tip. He was having all kinds of kernel panics while his Mac was asleep or waking from sleep and things like that. And I've seen this on Lisa's Mac Mini too. And digging in, I've noticed it said something about Thunderbolt. And it's been very touchy as to I can't figure it out. Well, he went through all kinds of things. He reinstalled, he did all the things that you would do. And he said, finally, here is how I fixed this. He says, I disabled Spotlight indexing on my large external drives. He did it by dragging the disk icon into the privacy pane of Spotlight in System Preferences. And he says, now the Mac no longer panics. So something about Spotlight indexing of large drives is causing kernel panics on Monterey-based Macs and maybe others. I went to turn off Spotlight indexing on Lisa's 2 external drives, and I cannot add the second one to Spotlight privacy. Like, I can't even get a Spotlight status for it, which tells me that things are munged with, at least with Spotlight on that drive. I even deleted the, whatever it is, the .spotlight-v100 folder or whatever that is, and tried to, start from scratch. No, it's like error. So I've got to dig more. But this is a really interesting thing with these kernel panics. Have you guys seen, because John, you've got external drives on your, on your Mac Mini there. Are you seeing kernel panics? Are you indexing those drives in Spotlight?
Mm-hmm.
You are. Okay, so they're not in the privacy tab and excluded from that.
Yeah, the only thing that I did notice, and I don't use the Mini as often as I used to.
Sure.
But when I upgraded my MacBook Pro to 12.3, something broke in Spotlight because I couldn't use it to launch apps, which is a little mini tip for people, is that if you want to launch an app, type it into Spotlight and it should show up. But it wasn't showing up for a while, so I don't know if 12.3 did something weird.
Yeah, this definitely predated 12.3 for both Adam and Lisa's Mac. But I mean, that's interesting. I mean, maybe Apple knows that there is a problem and is trying to address it. So, but you're not having any issues. What's the largest drive that you have attached to your Mac?
1 terabyte.
Okay.
Extra. It's a SanDisk SSD that I do for my carbon copy cloner. And
so are you? That would naturally be excluded from Spotlight, though, for your carbon copy cloner. So is it indexing that drive, or is it excluded from the index? If you go to System Preferences, Spotlight Privacy, you can see if it's listed in privacy, it's excluded from the index. Because that would be the interesting thing. But the drives that at least Adam and Lisa are having trouble with are larger. They're 2 and 4 terabyte drives. So there may be a size. I mean, I can't imagine why size would make a difference here unless there's lots of files on it. But is that drive excluded?
Are you saying size doesn't matter, Dave?
I didn't say that, Pete.
Okay.
But I appreciate you being
it's
here.
It's not in privacy.
Okay. But is that drive even mounted, or does Carbon Copy Cloner eject it? Okay, so
no,
it's not indexing it.
my Carbon Copy Cloner script will eject it after it does a clone.
Yeah, okay, so it's not indexing that drive. Okay, all right. Okay.
Well, first of all, I'm glad you said the second time you said how to get there to go to System Preferences, Spotlight, and then Privacy, because I was going Security and Privacy and looking in the Privacy tab, and I couldn't figure out what on earth it was
fair.
you guys were talking about. So got that. I'm back there now. So Spotlight and then the Privacy tab. I have a 2 terabyte LaCie drive that I frequently mount, and I use either Super Duper and also Time Machine on it. So I think it's indexing the Time Machine. I've never had any issues.
Shouldn't be. No,
okay.
Clones and Time Machine get excluded from Spotlight indexes. Otherwise, otherwise you'd be launching files from the wrong place.
I've noticed it try to do that at times. When I have the drive plugged in and I look for a file, it finds both of them.
Oh, then you might want to manually exclude that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I recommend it.
It hasn't kernel panicked on me that I'm aware of. So
are you leaving? I think this is happening when drives are left alone. When Macs are left alone with the drive attached, it goes to sleep. It wakes up to do the index to go back to sleep. I think that's when these problems are happening. We're not seeing them just in the natural course of using it. It's
right. And he was in his email. He said, "Hey, this doesn't happen when I'm using it. It's only when I leave it alone." Yeah. And
the same is true for Lisa. It's exactly the same and with large drives. So yeah. Okay. So yeah, interesting. I'd love to hear from any of you folks. I mean, that are doing this and either have the problem or don't have the problem. I mean, I'm running Monterey on this Mac in the studio, which has a 1 terabyte drive attached to it. And I'm also running it on the Mac Mini down in the office, which has a 4 terabyte drive. And I have not seen, recurring kernel panics on either of these. So it's obviously not an always problem, but given the right scenario, it is. So, yeah. All right. We'll answer Louis. It's either Louis or Lewis, and I don't know because I don't have it in front of me. Let's see. It is Louis. So he says, I have a Sonos Apple TV question. He says, I have the latest Apple TV 4K connected to my Samsung TV, which is not Dolby Atmos capable, only Dolby Stereo Plus. Listening to you talk about the Arc and your TV experience, I realized I was missing out on the Atmos experience because of my TV. That is correct. He says, I found many articles which support what you were saying 2 years ago, that the only switch box to get is a new TV. And is there another option? He asks. So that was true 2 years ago, that there was no switch box. There was no way of breaking out the signal into, so the many sound bars, and the Sonos Arc is one of them. But, if we just zoom this out to to Atmos capable sound bars, a lot of them receive their audio signal via HDMI using what's called the eARC, EARC path. This requires your TV to be able to send data back up the HDMI cable to, in this case, the soundbar, and it needs to be sent with that eARC format. So there's some special processing that needs to happen. It can't just be a raw HDMI signal that you plug in from, say, your Apple TV into the soundbar. That's not how it works. It needs to go to the TV first and then come back down. So the TV was the only switch box until the HD Fury folks came out with their Arcana adapter, which is a pass-through adapter that will send the HDMI signal via eARC to your soundbar and up to your TV, in full 4K glory. It's a somewhat geeky thing, but this is the product. It's the HD Fury Arcana. I think, I don't have pricing right in front of me, so I don't want to get it wrong, but I think it's about $150 or $200. I will look, but it'll do the full, 18 gig, 4K, full Atmos. It's the way to do it if you want to do it. Sorry, it's $250 now, but that's going to be the way to make this happen. Is using that HD Fury adapter, unless you want to buy a new TV, in which case I support your decision. Because, why not?
It's almost the same price as the.
Yeah, well, that's true,
right? The
right?
TVs have gotten so ridiculously low for what you can get now.
Yeah, it depends. Like if you want a new OLED TV or something, you'll pay a little more than that $250. But otherwise, yeah, you're right. Yep, for sure. So yeah, that's the way to do it. We are doing it with the LG TV because that's what we did. But I do have one of these Arcana adapters. I've tried it. It does work. It does all the things that it's supposed to do. It's a well-built device for sure. So, and it's geeky. It's got like a little screen on it that'll show you what you're passing, so you don't even have to guess. Like it knows. So it's good stuff.
No, I'm with you guys. I had an LG LCD, and after a couple of years, all of a sudden I noticed there was like a bright spot. Apparently, that model had a problem with, so they have like what I'll call a diffuser in there, and apparently the adhesive that they used wasn't that great. So I'm like, nope. So yeah, went to the local BJ's, and I could get a bigger TV that was 4K UHD and all that for less than I paid for this thing a number of years ago.
Sure.
And I use it as an HDMI switch, which you suggested to me at one point, Dave. At one point, I was like, oh, my Sony tuner doesn't have enough HDMI ports. And you're like, well, why not use your TV? And I'm like, In most cases, the TV is the way to go. Obviously, this case, not, for if you need to pass an Atmos signal. And then, like, if your receiver, if you have an audio output device. I hate that we still use the term receiver, especially when they don't even have FM receivers in them, or that's not their primary function. But actually, mine does. But
yeah, but you probably never used it, right? We call them receivers, but but they are, sound output boxes, right? And you want to make sure if you are using one of those that it will pass all of that 4K goodness to your TV, because many of them won't. And so you wind up getting, you have all your 4K devices and you run them through the weak link in the chain, and then boom, you're not getting what you want. So
as far as I can tell, it's working fine. And so I have my individual devices plugged into the TV, and then I have a toss link from the TV to the tuner. To
the receiver, whatever we're calling it these days. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing about that I will say is many, not all, some, I don't even want to say many, some TVs will, for a misinterpretation or an overcautiousness of security in terms of like data protection, will downgrade the audio sent out of the optical, you called it the toslink connector, to 2-channel. So not only do they not pass Atmos, they don't even pass Dolby 5.1. So be aware. Check your receiver. Probably will tell you what it's getting.
Yeah, no, exactly. It'll show, DTS or whatever, but it'll show, 3/2.1 or whatever. Great. So I'm like, so they're not downgrading it.
That's good. Okay, yeah, some TVs do, many don't, is probably the right way to say it. But yeah, you just want to be aware. And really of all of this stuff, that's what you want to do, is you just want to look like, if you're passing your 4K Apple TV to your 4K TV through a receiver, check your TV and make sure your TV is saying, yes, I am getting 4K, because it might not.
It has you have an LG, so you know this. But yeah, you hit the info button on the remote and it'll tell you what the resolution is.
Exactly. Yeah, you just want to make sure whatever you're putting in the chain isn't diluting things. So, yeah. All right. Well, there we are. Yet again, we've had a blast. We've had a good time. We even had a little bit of a hiccup in there.
No matter where you go, there you are. And here we are.
And here we are. And there you are, folks. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us for this hour and a quarter here. We will try not to make it an hour and a half, despite our tangential excursions, I will say. Pete, thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. It was nice being had. That didn't come out right.
That's right. You've been had.
Always fun to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. John, thanks you for adapting your schedule to meet mine and doing this on a Monday, the release day. Now I actually have to go and do all the work to get it out. Craziness. And then I got to go record another podcast where we have to talk about, it's Geek Gab. So we will naturally be talking about the death of Taylor Hawkins, which is just, I'm still not sure how to process.
That was a total shocker, huh?
Yeah, man. Taylor Hawkins was the drummer for the Foo Fighters, and prior to that for Alanis Morissette, but just 50 years old, a fantastic drummer, a joyous human, at least on the outside. But I know that he struggled with addiction, and it sounds like that may have been part of what.
It's too bad. I've got a buddy who did years and years and years of charter flying, and he once told me many years ago that he flew the Foo Fighters somewhere on a charter, and if they weren't just the nicest group of guys, one of the funnest group of people he ever had the pleasure of flying, that they were just genuine, down-to-earth, fun people to be around, and which is rare in the charter industry. You get a lot of real prima donnas, and that is not the case with those guys.
That's good to hear. Yeah, I got the chance to actually chat with Taylor Hawkins and Pat Smear, one of the guitarists in the Foo Fighters, back in the hands-on room at an Apple event. I forget what Tim Cook had announced that day, but it was like a theater of 200 people in downtown San Francisco, and then they had the Foo Fighters play, and Dave Grohl was busy, hobnobbing with Tim Cook, and the guys were like, oh yeah, you're not going to get to talk to Dave because, he and Tim need to buddy, but you can talk to us, and I'd rather talk to you guys anyway, and it was, Dave Grohl obviously was the drummer for Nirvana, and so being the drummer for another drummer is a tough role to fill, and the two of them had a bond that was palpable when you watched them on stage. And then hearing Pat Smear talk about it, he was like, "Oh man, you never want to be in a band with two drummers. These two guys." And I told him, like, "Well, I'm also a drummer, Pat." And he's like, "It's a conspiracy." He's like, "I got to get out of here." But they were good guys. My limited brief experience with them matched exactly what your friend said there, Pete. So yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, it is.
Man, we are doing better to reduce the negative stigma associated with addiction and treating it like the disease that it is.
It is a disease, yeah. Period.
Yeah, it's
hard to get your head around that because it's not a disease like the flu or
right. Right, and it's
but it is one that develops and it goes one way. You're either in remission or you're not.
Or you're not. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and it doesn't get better on its own.
No. As a good friend of mine who is a recovering addict said to me recently, he says it's a disease that lies to you in your own voice, and I thought that was a really poignant way of putting it. So anyway, I feel for Taylor's family. I feel for the band, and I feel for Taylor. I mean, it's yeah. Anyway, so that was my prep for Geek Gab later today. Thank you for joining this important bit here. But really, compassion is the thing I'm working on with any of the people in my life that are addicts. So. Thank you for listening, folks. Make sure to check out our sponsors. MacGeekGab.com/sponsors is the place to go to see all of that. Of course, you can check out the sponsors that were mentioned in this episode. Otherworld Computing at MacSales.com, HunterDouglas.com/MGG, and Kolide.com/MGG, KOLIDE.com/MGG. Have a good one, folks. Enjoy. Pete, John got us into this mess today. Do you have anything that might help us get out of it?
Only one thing comes to mind. Everybody take this to heart. Wherever you go, whatever you do, make it a great week, but don't get caught.
Made on back.